Superman Lost issue 4, Christopher Priest and Carlo Pugilane on the art. So I've talked to Matt about this at least 3 times. I don't know if you've been on any of the episodes where we talked about this.
No, I had to read issue 3 and 4 today.
Okay. How have you been finding it?
Really interesting. I think it's dense, but in a way that I expect from Priest at this point. I'm enjoying it. I think it's so different. It's but not in like it's a bad way. It's just it's so different that it's making you like question it. But I think the more it's gone on, especially this issue, I'm seeing more of this is still Superman. Like this issue and the last issue, I think actually, to be fair, 'cause I kind of read them back. But 3 was the Dolphins.
Yes.
Yeah. So like 3, there's a lot more of this is still Superman in there.
I'm getting a bit more conflicted with it as we go on. I liked issue 1 quite a bit, and I think issue 2 onwards have all had this problem where I really like the 2 or 3 pages we get of like present day stuff where the weight of what he's been through is like hitting him and Lois, and like those little human moments, like I really love, and it makes me excited to see what he went through out there. But like all of the stories of what he's actually was doing in space so far have been kind of hit and miss, and some of them have just been kind of like, I don't know, they don't feel as bad as and I know it's probably building to like the real thing that really broke him and the time that he spent out there. But I know Matt's big complaint is that he feels that there's far too much like, oh, Priest's really proud that he looked up a bunch of stuff, or he's got a bunch of like techno jargon, or talking about the way science works when he's, and that was especially problematic, I think, in like issue 2. There was a lot of like,
okay, I'll say it's been, I don't remember that.
Clark was talking a lot about like moving through space and light years, and you know, but there was a lot of jargon that clearly a lot of research went into about going around galaxies and whatnot. And this one, like, you know, the big thing here is that he's went back to the planet that he left before, and yeah, and he didn't want to. He's not wanting to leave again. He's not going to leave the people who are hurting here again. But he's living in a bubble that is oxygen, you know,
the
based.
Oxygen death zone. Yeah.
Yes. Well, to everyone else on the planet, it's the oxygen death zone.
Yeah.
But he's living on the Kent farm that's in this bubble there. And he's not willing to leave the people in trouble behind, even though he's got a chance to leave with those little annoying aliens that dropped him off here in the first place. So I do think the way he's progressing through some of this stuff feels a little bit strange to me. Like when it sort of revealed that he was back on this planet, it felt kind of like a abrupt transition where I wasn't like, I don't know if I quite felt the desperation that he had to go back the way because he realized that he was screwed. Kind of thing. I
get that. I think there's a little bit of, it's supposed to feel like, no, there's a lot of time passing between issues to some extent, in that to really show how long he's been gone, right? Because obviously it's 10 issues, I think, this book.
Yeah.
And he's been gone, you know, more or less a lifetime from his perspective. I think it has to skip through a lot of time, you know, between issues, so to make it feel like there's time passing. So we just kind of, we're coming back in at snippets later, but it does give it a little bit of a jarring feeling of, wait, what did I miss?
Yeah. You know, and Priest does the dense writer. He does, as in he writes dense material, not that he is dense as a person.
It's interesting because it's not even often like, there's points where it's not even dialogue heavy. It's just, he's so intense. I think it's more intense than dense is the word I want to use. Because it feels like everything's so essential and serious. Like every panel feels like it's important, even when it's, you know, even when it's just like a blacked out panel with one word in white on it. It feels like it's really weighty, and probably his format and his writing feels more weighty than some of the ideas actually are. Because, like you say, you don't get that feeling of, oh, he had to go back, you know, because he was so desperate. Because that kind of happened between issues. Yeah. But then it feels like that moment would play so well in his style.
I also feel like it's, yeah, like part of my problem with like, it's supposed to feel intense and weighty, but it doesn't to what it's supposed to feel like, because like this planet that he's on and like okay, so what it sets up in this issue is that the leader is actually basically selling off like a city to these aliens to come in and do what they want with. Like, Clark thinks they're invading. He thinks there's like an invasion happening, and they're like, "No, we've got a contract." Like,
right, didn't you get the email?
And he goes and confronts this guy. So obviously, this idea that there's a leader of a planet who is just giving up like the poor city effectively for profit is really dark and a really like nasty concept. But I think the way the characters look, the way these aliens look, everything just feels like light and comic booky in terms of actual. And I'm not even complaining about Pygmalion's art necessarily. I think it is like an overall presentation thing where I just don't feel quite the tone that I think that the weight of these ideas is supposed to feel like. And Clark's whole like, no, I'm Superman. I can't leave without sorting these problems. These people need my help. I need to like make this place better. And that's obviously something I can get behind as like, a Superman fan and like him feeling like he needs to do something and fix things. But
so I say it feels a bit more like Superman in these last two issues, even though he's lost and stuff. He had to help the Dolphins. He had to sort out that problem. He had to come back here, and he has to intervene.
Yeah, I do sometimes wonder, because I always get this way with Priest books, where I like the setup, but the more they go on, I start to have problems with how some of the stories being told. Where when I actually take a step back and look at the concepts, and this idea that Superman in part is only gone for so long because of the choices he makes, rather than because he just absolutely could not make it back. Like, no, he had to do the right thing, so that kept him away for longer. And that potentially causing some of the stress between him and Lois because he made a choice to not come back as quick as he could. Yeah. Like, that idea and how that affects their relationship is great. That is absolutely a thing you should explore with these two as a married couple. It's one of these things every time, like, Dan Didio or someone says, "Oh, we have to reset the characters so there's drama again." Like, I'm like, no, you can have drama with a married couple. Like, there's so many things to explore with like a long-term partnership and how they handle like the fact that he's an alien who flies off and does things. I
cannot wait until it'll be somewhere in the last 3 issues of this book where it's just an issue of him and Lois sat down in a room for the entire issue.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be one of the best issues of the year.
It'll probably be great.
I think he will knock it out of the park with that issue.
That should be great. I think the way he tells the rest of the story, though, isn't quite clicking for me.
That's fair.
Which is a shame.
I'm kind of... It's something that I think it's very much... It's a Priest-style book, and the more I read of them, the more I'm understanding kind of what that is, and the more I'm kind of getting into it. Like, it takes a different mindset of... Like, when I sit down to read this book, you kind of have to approach it differently to how I approach... I don't know, Batman, right? Like, even just like action, Philip K. Johnson's Action Comics right now. I almost have to come out with a different mindset of what I'm going to read. Yes, they're both Superman books, but they're both so wildly different in the way they're telling their story that I have to come at the book differently. I think once I realize that I can come at a Priest book in that way, I find I enjoy them more.
Yeah, the cliffhanger of this issue is so he's negotiating with the little aliens, and they're like, "Look, we don't give a shit about you saving these people. Besides, like, there's only one of you, and there's all of us. You'll have to do this alone." And then someone says he doesn't have to, and then a Green Lantern of some kind is the final page. There's a female Green Lantern who, I don't recognize her.
I don't know. She's pink.
Seems to. Yeah, she's got like I won't call them tattoos, but she's got like light like shapes on her arms and stuff.
Yeah, I don't know if they are actually glowing or if they are like more tattoos and they're just illuminated with the light.
I was thinking it was more of a natural skin like pattern thing rather than tattoos per se.
Yeah, it could be.
Just because alien. But,
yeah.
Yeah, so that leaves us off with a bit of a cliffhanger. So, I was not expecting that. I don't know where that's going to go.
I think what I really like is there was a lot of stuff in, I don't know if it was issue 2 or 3, of Clark talking about how the Green Lanterns make space seem so easy. You go here, you go there, zip, zap, zoom, you get home. And he's like, he never appreciated the weight of how one mistake and you're stuck out here. And then now, a Green Lantern shows up, and it's a cliffhanger of, again, it's like, well, this seems like an easy way home. Any Green Lantern would man get back. This should be job done. And it's like, okay, what goes wrong now? What choice does he make now to mean that he doesn't get home?
Yeah,
and that's what is interesting to me about the next issue. That's what has me excited about it. Is how does it's not what necessarily goes wrong, it's what happens to make him choose to not go back with this Green Lantern.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, there's a lot of potential here. I think Priest's writing is just sometimes like, I almost do wonder if it would be better in trade. Like, the leaving it, a month between issues just makes it very hard to like dive back into his stories in a lot of ways. Because it took me a second to realize where he was when it cut. Because that planet wasn't in the last issue. That was issue like 2 that we saw this planet and stuff. Because issue 2 was that, and then I think issue 2 was also like the giant like nano like style alien that like made a sort of basically formed themselves into Superman for him to fight.
No, that was 3, because that was where the dolphins were feeding. That's
where the dolphins were. That's right. Right, so that was last issue. So it took me a second to readjust when I was like, wait, where is he? Is this like a flashback on the Kenton farm? But it can't be.
I appreciate that it gives you a good few pages until it's like he's conversing with this guy, and it's not until like you're quite far into the conversation it's like, oh, he's back here.
Yeah. So I love what Priest's playing with, and I think all the ideas are great, and it's certainly if the weeks keep being quiet enough, I'll keep reading it and see where it goes. Because
you've only got 3 books on this week, you might as well, right?
And I do suspect that there probably will be some nice payoffs to some things. If we do get an issue that is just him and Lois talking about what happened.
I feel it's an inevitability, and there's going to be at least 2 pages of them sitting there in silence.
Yeah. But that makes me also wonder, like, what... Is there anything else he's going to do that he's going to have to feel really guilty about?
Yes. I don't know what it is, but yes, 100%. Okay. There's still 6 issues left of this book. And obviously part of his guilt and his PTSD is the time he's been away, clearly. But also, there is something that's happened. So, some decision he's made while he's been gone, I think, that is, eating at him more than just the time.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. What you giving Superman Lost issue 4?
I'm going to give it a 7.5.
Yeah, it's a hard one for me to rate, because I'm kind of mixed on it, ultimately. But I like a lot of the ideas. A combination of
you like all the ideas, but you're not entirely loving the execution, maybe.
Yeah, it's not the most... Like, it's not even like I can't enjoy a weighty read that's jumping around a lot. Like, I love like a lot of the like Black Label Tom King books and things like that.
As I say, it has a very similar vibe to a lot of those.
But there's just something about the way Priest actually paces them out and like jumps around. It's just a little bit more hard for me to get into.
It's funny because the way you're describing that's how I feel about a lot of the Tom King ones. Where I'm like, I should like this on paper, everything's there, but I just don't enjoy reading it.
Yeah, I think I'll just go with a 6 for this one. And, I hope I like the next one more. I do, because I do like a lot conceptually what's going on. But Priest does seem to have this thing with me where I always, I like the first issue or 2, and then it starts to kind of slide.